Hello, thank you for everyone who's interested in this area of games, which is hidden out of sight. Yes, um, I'm a game developer, and just to introduce myself a little bit, yes, it's a speech about games for visually impaired people. Uh, yes, I'm in game development since 1996. Just some relatable facts. I worked on over 100 projects in video game industry. At the moment, I published a lot of books this year as well in different countries. I have some academic degrees. I'm game designer, narrative designer for over 28 years, and at the moment I'm the head of business development of a game publisher. And also I teach at universities and so on. Sometimes I had different interesting projects, and like some of them led me to this interesting field of games for blind people. I will tell you a little bit about my personal story with this project, what led to what experiences I drew from them, and what I found out about the whole industry of games, and how ironic it sounds, video games for blind people. That would be like the contents. We have proper contents. You can see I will tell you about the scale of the problem, what is it actually a market, what the personal projects for me were there, what is how actually it exists in the game industry, because a lot of games actually directed on visually impaired people without us even knowing about it, and which games are blind friendly without us even not knowing that these games are the most blind friendly. It actually have been discovered for me as well. Also, we will discuss which features make game visually impaired friendly or blind friendly, and how to implement them basically. And that's and some questions if you will have some. So first of all, scale of the problem. There is actually European Blind Union, and we're a European Union, so we should know that we can trust the statistics. There are over 30 million people in Europe alone, and that's a big market actually. And they need entertainment. They can't listen to music all the time. Like they also need entertainment. And there is a whole hidden market in the world, which is over 338 million of people who really, and those are registered people. It means that they went to medical facility. It means they have access to it. It means that like they also, if they would want, they would be able to access some entertainment. They also they want to hear stories as normal people. They want access to all this information, and they will want more experiences to have, just like we through video games and some simulators and so on. So basically, World Health Organization also made an research about how many people, visually impaired people with different kinds, not just blind, but with different kind of the visibility impairment, and they found 2.2 billion people have now problems with eyesight, and it means that they have predisposition towards audio games because their eyesight is not as good. They want to relax eyes, and their doctors prescribe them. Perhaps those people work somewhere like with use of their eyes or in an environment which gets strain on their eyes, and they really want to do something else. So, and that kind of made it very big hidden market. Actually, there is a huge hidden market. So if anyone is interested, including like if you want just to make the world better, or if you actually want to earn money, it's a good way to look into something and really make a market, really make a coin, and do a good thing at the same time. Win-win. If someone would be looking for more information about the first project I made, it's published in a book, in Polish book, LARPing Out of Sight. It's published in Polish and in English, and actually it's accessible online for free. It's just one of the articles, but it's just an overview of what I will tell you next. Basically, it's a it's interesting project. First of all, I had a wonderful friend called Alexei Krechet. He's amazing vocalist, but he wasn't invited to a lot of concerts and private parties because when he was singing, he was doing face as he feels comfortable. And I suddenly understood that people who lost their eyesight early on in their life, they don't rehearse their mimics. Our mimics is a product of our playing, acting. We rehearse them all our lives. We look at reaction of other people. We learn to converse with our faces and our mimics, just like we learn to talk, to lead conversation with our words, verbally. The same way we do facially, with our expressions. And when you're blind, you cannot see it. You cannot see reaction of other people, and they don't tell you because they're so polite and nice and tolerant, which shows that you have to give feedback sometimes. And they also cannot see themselves in the mirror. How many times we looked at our mirror and checked out how we look smiling like this, like that, from this direction, and checking which is the best side. That's normal thing. It is inaccessible for them. They cannot do that. This is why this friend of mine, even though he's actually Belarusian, he actually won a scholarship in school of ABBA. He actually got Golden Cross in Malta Vocal Festival. He won something like in Russia, Diamonds of Russia, or whatever. He become one of the winners of International Festival of Vocalists, blind vocalists, or visually impaired vocalists, which is bigger competition than Eurovision, trust me. And he wasn't accepted to Eurovision and a lot of other, because as entertainment-wise, his face was very aggressive and sometimes, to some people, repulsive. And his wonderful wife, very beautiful, the irony, incredibly beautiful blonde wife. She also a director, theater director, also sing. And we discussed with her. She said that she tried to work with his mimics to somehow teach him to use it and fix it, but it's already too late and it was really difficult and it didn't work. So I thought, hey, maybe we should go early on and try to change it. So I went to school for visually impaired children. And I have been trustee of two charities, Independent Children's Aid and Medicine in Chernobyl. So I decided to create a charity project to help. So I also worked with theater class A, which is genius. Shilova Tatiana, she's a director of that theater, and she even revered by Tom Stoppard because she's so genius, and it's actually free theater. She works with all ages, and I invited her to help on the project to create some kind of program environment so children would learn mimics. Blind children would learn mimics. But to do that, we needed also some children who could see, because they would be the measurer. They needed to be reactors, and they were supposed to provide feedback. So this director Sheila, because she also had children levels theater as well, all ages she had. We just took the same age children from her theater and brought them into this school for visually impaired, so they would work in pairs. But before they started it, I designed a couple of LARPs to teach children without disabilities, to teach them what it is to be blind. So I wrote a couple LARPs, maybe someone knows this old science fiction book, Day of Triffids. It's a legendary book, and some other Darkest Dungeon and so on, a book where basically LARPs where they play in a dark room pretending that they lost their eyesight and they had to survive certain challenges, and so they would feel how to live without eyesight. Later, after certain games like that and 2 weeks of work with them, we joined children together, and we decided to run a couple of LARPs, to write a couple of LARPs for them to somehow break their emotional like attentiveness of each other, and so they would learn to work in pairs and also to start learning mimics. And at the same time, Shilova, the director, she was rehearsing with them play Little Prince. Well, of course, wonderful play. Everyone probably knows it. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, legendary creation. And it was very interesting like experience for her. We'll talk about it later. But it's very interesting that we needed to solve certain things for kids to trust each other. Okay, children from theater, they already knew what, like at least they could imagine what the world looks like for blind children. But they needed to learn to be tactile because it turned out that blind children are more tactile. They tend to touch. And children of the same age without such a disability, they are not that tactile. They feel awkward touching each other still and so on. So we also played couple LARPs where they had to have physical contact and contact each other just to get to know, like comfortable with it. Then we started making games where called a methodology called the Mask of Emotion, where children with eyesight, they had to shape with their fingers an emotion on the face of a blind child, and blind child had to rehearse with his muscle memory to remember this emotion. And later we ran a couple of LARPs where blind children, they were the only one who could communicate certain emotion to the others, so they would practice showing exact that emotion, so their muscle memory would catch on. So they would be able to demonstrate it farther and farther use it than in real life as well. So that's something which we were doing. But suddenly we felt some other moment during this interesting, what's on that slide? Okay, during this actually interesting project, I also felt that they have this complex of victims in the world. Like they're actually, the school was in Belarus, in Minsk. I'm a political refugee, like been to jail, to war, like everywhere. So now, like, I paid my dues to that country, and but it's not the best, like, disabled-friendly environment. So they had this complex of victim because they were blind, and their parents, of course, not all of them are taught. Not all of them had the same sensitivity, like, and sometimes they were like, "Oh, that's such a shame that you're blind." They always, like, little phrases they would build up that I'm not like everyone. I'm blind, and I'm a punishment to my parents, and so on and so on. Like, you need assistance, and that is a problem actually. So we decided to create a couple games. For example, one of them is a Dungeon of Dark Castle. When we covered. It was already dark early, like at 5 o'clock in the evening. So we covered half of the school, like all the windows and everything, so it would be dark, just pitch dark. And we put their hints, made a labyrinth and put their hints how to get out and where is the exit, which could be better felt with tactile people and heard and so on. So to get out, to get better chances of getting out, children with eyesight who turned out to be blind, they had to find the blind child and hold his shoulder for him to lead them out of the maze. And at the end there was like this linoleum cover, and they were coming out, and there were parents, they were applauded to, and they were greeted as saviors. They were coming out, and children with eyesight were holding their shoulders to be led out of the maze. And that actually demonstrated to them that to some extent, in certain circumstances, they have they have like a certain excessive ability, they have their own advantages and which they can use, and that life is not stopping there where it is. So it's pretty interesting. And at the same time, we were rehearsing some stuff. So there were some other fascinating moments. Well, of course, after that game, there were a lot of crying and, like, a lot of stuff. It was very nice and emotional. But what interesting outcomes we had after this. Actually, we noticed that this project changed lives of children with eyesight as well. Their parents started reporting to us that children became more tactile. They started using like touches and communication with parents. Of course, they started enforcing their manipulation of parents with their touch. The child would come to parents, take mother's hand, put it in her hand, like, mother, could I go there or there? And all the parents, oh no, they never have done it. Like, and it's more effective now. And parents were happy. Of course, they needed to learn how to resist such manipulations, but it was something interesting for them. Also, they noticed that children started turning off, because there were a lot of games in darkness, and their audio perception. Because you know that in modern times, a lot of people are more visually perceptive, because it's not just only because of our inborn, like some kind of capability, it's because our life dictates it. We have more visual information now. Now, during this project, they become more audio perceptive. They developed tolerance to sound. It wasn't straining them so quickly. So they started and they noticed that they get more information out of audio while lights are off. So parents reported on numerous occasions when children would turn off the light in their rooms and just listen to music or to some fairy tale, audio story without any light. So their imagination would go wild and they would come out like, oh, I'm listening to a book and stuff. So they opened to themselves another dimension of life, and they enriched their life basically. Into new dimension, actually tactile and audio. So basically, other kids also got to upgrade. But interesting, another result was for a director. She was the only one who was paid, because her job was the most difficult. She actually was very surprised how unique her experience has been rehearsing play with blind children. Just imagine, you need to get into character. What's the first thing you need? A cool costume, cosplay, like whatever. But for them, the hell was the costume. They need to feel, they need to hear, they need to stand, they need environment, they need to get into the character. Some of them, they actually could get into character easier in any moment, because they could imagine that they look like someone without a costume. Some needed to feel certain material. They needed some smell of leather or whatever to be a certain character, or to have piece of fur to hold it and touch it to get deeper into character. Some actually, they needed to hear someone address them, but it's absolutely new experience for experienced director. It was really awesome. So she got a very good upgrade as well. And there are a lot of outcomes. So it gave a lot of ideas about how to expand actually. It could be useful also to a lot of people without disabilities to learn how little they know of how much of their possibilities they shun out just because they can do it, they disregard them. When we have right, but we do not exercise it, and so on and so on. The same thing with abilities. We don't value our possibility of breathing until we get running nose. And then we forget how happy we are. Yes. So that's something which we learned again from this project, that people actually forget how much they can do. This experience actually, because I have been game designer to that point for a long time, and some people in the world knew me because I started working in the United States, we got some more interesting offers. And this is something which was very new to us as game designers. And I worked also with virtual reality, but just imagine, what is virtual reality to a blind person? Basically, just closing your eyes. And suddenly you feel the rain. You can just close your eyes, and this is your virtual reality. So it's much cheaper, because virtual reality is not some kind of technology. It's a course of technologies which develop. And this way, basically, with one just soundtrack of the rain, you can create new environment for a blind person. So I was lucky to be invited into different projects. There, for example, as one of the examples, there's this site, Audio Games Net, which has a lot of games for blind people, or for those who want to play something without using their eyes and just to relax their eyes. A lot of game developers really would want that after working on game for a whole day. So that's something which turned out to be unique, and it really helps you. And to me, as game designer and narrative designer, it was a very unique opportunity to learn on a new level how to use audio and narrative without visuals, because we do too big of a focus on visuals. How do timing and so on, and how important it is when it's the only media you can use. So that's kind of interesting. It was, and suddenly I opened a whole new industry for myself. All those numbers which I showed you before, that there are 2.2 billion people in the world with impaired vision to some extent by World Health Organization. It turned out to be that it's a huge undermined market. Also later, I had the luck of playing a small part in another interesting French project. If you would like to know this game, you can close your eyes. I'll show you our trailer.
Who are you?
My name is Edward Blake.
The Blind Knight.
Mother! Louis!
Are you deaf as well as blind?
I have come for my wife.
Who dares to sully the land of my ancestors?
Tell me when to jump.
You're a monster!
Back, demons!
This way, Father.
That's basically our trailer. You can check it out. It's free role-playing game, mobile, free to play, online. You can download it from Google Play. It's not, maybe it's not, I don't know if it's available still, but it had like 500,000 downloads. So you still might find it on App Store, and I definitely know that it's still available on Steam. So it's something fascinating that we actually could create a full story, like they could create. My part wasn't that big. A full story with fascinatingly using only audio. And of course, the mechanic was that a blind knight, his wife gets stolen, kidnapped, and he goes to find her, and his daughter is leading him. So basically, what she tells him, this way, and he walks, and you have to choose where you're going, like by swiping, and you fight by swiping. When you fight, you have to listen to your opponent and try to guess how he sounds when he swipes at you and everything. Like, it's fascinating. It's just a new experience. You actually fight without looking. You're just swiping your telephone. It's fascinating. You like blocking, like you hide because, and you turn to block your opponent, and then you hear that he's about to swipe. You hear how his breathing changes, all those sounds, and you swipe him. It's just fascinating, and that's something before I started working on this project, I couldn't even think of this all being possible. A role-playing game with battle system for blind people. Like, just imagine it. But then it went further. Actually, this is the story, like, The Blind Legend, 2222. Very cool stuff. Actually, and it's become possible just with 3D sound, which appeared already long ago. So we could do virtual reality for blind people much earlier than for the rest of us. And probably still, we always do virtual reality games for blind people much better and thought through and better quality emerger than to, most problems, practically all problems for virtual reality connected with your eyes. All of them, like, also safety of environment where you're located, but mainly with your eyes, because it creates, but with audio you don't have that, so it's kind of interesting. But still, at the beginning, you will get tired quickly because just listening, you're not used to. In time, you will get this endurance. And the most blind-friendly game is Mario. Mario actually one of the first and one of the best blind-friendly games ever. Because every action has a sound attached to it. So a lot of blind people actually can speedrun Mario. Well, original, not 3D one, but original Mario. So can you imagine who could have thought of that? Like that Mario actually. Okay, there are also different other games. For example, Lost and Hound as well. Well, of course, you already know how they determine which direction to go. Yeah, of course, the dog. So there are a lot of interesting games turned out to be in this industry, and I started like researching it. I learned that a lot of games actually take care of visually impaired. For example, Far Cry. See, they have the whole set of additional possibilities. For example, vibration feedback gave another dimension of senses, kinetic senses to blind people. Of course, they have. They also have opportunity to use voice communication. Also, like they have, you can see that this screenshot is for visually impaired, for colorblind people. So it also additionally added to possibility. And just imagine, you have, you already seen the statistics, that just in Europe there are 30 million people, blind people, and if in the world like almost 300 million. And just imagine how many people with other visual disability which can be attracted to the game by just adding additional features to the color. They could play this game without these problems. You just bringing a new audience which pays for your game. That's fascinating. Interesting, also very famous game. It disguised in a lot of chats and portals for blind and for those who study and develop this game. It's Shades of Doom, video game for Windows and created for visually impaired. It has like virtual reality sound effects. So basically, it's also 3D environmental and so on. They have amazing music, and if you would want to try something out, I would advise you to try Shades of Doom. It's one of the like corner breakthrough games for blind. They have like 32 different tracks playing at the same time. Just imagine how many dimensions. It's just like, you know, in visual we have like different layers sometimes, but just imagine they have 32 different tracks playing at the same time. How deep is audio of their environment? You actually get a proper environment. It's so interesting. And 32 dimensions of audio. It's like, that's something worth implementing in some indie game. Audio is not that difficult now. And you know, one more game which is very blind friendly. Just try to guess which famous video game is also one of the most blind friendly. It's vicious, it's bloody, it's not tolerant at all, not children friendly, but actually for blind maybe. Mortal Kombat. As well, interesting thing that every action has a sound cue, and listening to opponent, you can actually feel and react to his actions. If he's trying to do, he has the sounds, those screams, everything is actually sound accompanied, and that's what makes that game blind friendly. They actually can play without seeing, and they can fight, they can compete with each other. And it's quite interesting. You can Google up, like, there are videos of ironically, videos of blind people playing Mortal Kombat. So it's fascinating. It's a whole new world. And of course, you can see that they have also a lot of mods for visually impaired and so on and so on. But even from the first Mortal Kombat, they had very blind-friendly environment, because every action has a cue. When they walk, when they like jump, everything has audio cue, and blind people can react. That basically accessibility in the top 10 recent, like relatively recent games. But color deficiently, adjustable front side, hug scaling, and contrast setting. Basically, those are unique moments, and you can see that Last of Us Part 2, actually one of the most visually impaired friendly games out of like the latest popular titles. But you can see that at least some features are implemented with a lot of games. And the second Hades got even more of them. Ori and the Will of the Wisps, they also got contrast, like contrast setting is not that big, but look, actually, Microsoft Flight Simulator has color deficiency, adjustable font size, and actually, those are features which are quite popular, and we don't understand what they're for. Like, why would someone need a different contrast? But someone would. Adjustable font size, hug scaling, yes. So for those who don't understand, there's a short explanation. Okay, games accessibility feature. Which accessibility features are most popular and would help to blind people and people with impaired vision to play your game? First of all, aim assist. Yeah, of course, right now it's also a very good help to cross-platformer gameplay because, you know, where there's cross-platform gameplay, PC always wins over console, and console people, they look like some kind of impaired people. But aim assist often already added to console games. But still, it's a very good help to PC games, to a lot of, like, just to be part of the original build, because it gives a lot of opportunities. Also, controller vibration, it gives another dimension of sensitivity, as we explained, and it gives another signal and another cue for people to react, people who cannot see. Color deficiency support, urbanable controls. Hug scaling, we already discussed it, and contrast setting, which is often used in games, but a lot of indie games forget about it. They just, like, they have one contrast and that's it. But in bigger games, when a company becomes a corporation, sometimes they obliged by regulation to add that. This is why bigger games, AAA games, they always have contrast setting, and indie games almost never have it because they don't have the same requirements. Advanced audio options, because actually people with impaired vision have more sensitive audio, and sometimes they need to regulate it a little differently. So it's not always you have to just throw it all there, and sometimes some music can really, for them, no matter visuals, like their like enjoyment of game really could be killed by terrible music, like too loud pixel music or something, just crazy. So you should really think about those who would listen to your game, because even sound of it can attract the player. And for them, it's part of the gameplay. So you should remember that music and everything, for someone, it's a huge part of gameplay. So you shouldn't just exclude, gameplay is more important, I can just make terrible visuals, terrible audio because gameplay is more important. No, to some people, it's a huge part of gameplay. You should remember about it. Okay, how game developers can create more accessible games. Adjusting font size, head-up display should be like, basically, also some moments where you can actually skip some scenes. Skipping scenes is not only for those who are like, oh, I already played it 10 times, I just want to skip it. No, it's also for those who cannot enjoy, unfortunately, your wonderful scene. There should be an opportunity, because they cannot hear when it like started, something happens, and it just makes them confused. Or something should be explained. There could be option where like narrator explains what's going on for visually impaired. Just a little more of voiceover. Lock on aim, weapon targeting, yes. Customizable difficulty levels, so players can choose how challenging game is. Of course, blind people and people with visually impaired people, sometimes they try a game on the lightest setting because they want to first get into signals. They need to learn. They have different tutorial. In usual tutorial, you teach them what to press and when, and they need to learn what it sounds. They need to learn cues, vibration, and so on. And sometimes they need to play a game on light just to enjoy it. And sometimes, indeed, playing it on difficult is too difficult for them. They have already enough challenging. Basically, they're playing on nightmare mode. And that basically, well, I have 7 minutes left. Yeah, for questions. Yep. So let's. That's a short for what I wanted to say. So please, if you have any questions. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a very insightful presentation. I just wanted to ask, there were a couple of 2 points in 2 slides before about what you look for. And there was also mention about Metacritic score and the other one. So what's the point of those scores? Like 2 or 3 slides back, when if we would go back.
Okay. Slides back, yeah. Which one?
This one. This
yeah.
one, and you have highest rated platform and Metacritic score best. What do you mean by these 2 items?
Like it just actually we've done research of those games which got the best score and which feature is the most credited. Basically, it's games accessibility feature ranked. It's which games which got the best score, what features they have. So basically, highest ranked platform usually has aim assist, and so on and so on. So just basically that what we taken into account, checking which top games, which features they have to make them popular. So basically, some games they actually make profit not only by making a good game, but actually to making it more accessible to more millions of people. And just imagine if, you're a disabled person who wants to play something cool, and they saying this awesome game comes out with feature friendly to you. I mean, definitely you will buy it to try. You don't have such a big selection as all of us just looking at dozens and hundreds of games coming out. Yeah.
Yesterday there was also a session in lawyer's room, also about accessibility, and the barrister was talking about, especially in Poland, when you opt in to make your game accessible, you cannot opt out, and one of the main things that will need to be made accessible are e-commerce platforms. So, for example, Steam, Epic, and so on. What do you think right now? Is it accessible for visually impaired or blind person to reach those games on the platforms that are available right now?
The thing is that usually, like people with visual disability, they also have this community, and they have their own chats, they have their own ratings, they have discussions of what to do, where to find. There's like a whole new dimension of what's going on. They will find the game no matter where it is, and they will play it. There was a friend of mine, a blogger, who was paralyzed, and he still could play. I mean, he could play Diablo. He could, friends from game industry developed for him a special mod when he was playing with his chin, and whenever he would hum, it would be like in different, would press a button. So he actually streams games. And who would think? And when there's community, they actually help to solve problems of each other. No matter, it's difficult to impose a requirement on game developers to be necessarily disabled friendly, because there's also aim not to press on to hard creativity. First, they need to start to create. When they will have money, when they will want rationally more audience, they will add this feature. But sometimes when game developed by 1, 2, 3 people, for them it's achievement to release first game, second game, to earn some money with it, first. They just don't have money and time sometimes. It's bad, and bigger companies, they just want to be friendly, disabled friendly, because it just opens bigger audience, and that's it. Yep.
Here.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have also a question. These games are for visual impairment and blind people, but Are there any blind developers of these games? Do they incorporate their ideas to the games? Do they, I don't know, create something or no? For example, in your company.
Yes, there are developers. As like all professions probably have like visually impaired people, especially if you work with computers. Sometimes you start not visually impaired and you become one, but very often in my case twice. Yes. So the thing is that, for example, that friend of mine who's an ingenious singer, he's also a sound director. He can do help with sounds, and because of his sensitivity, he can help. There are a lot of like people who can do a lot of things. They could be musicians. They could do narrative. Now we have not enough of different tools which help them to type as they did before. I mean, I can write a message to my blind friends and they would reply. They can the same way, they could write a narrative, they could write stories, they could write scripts. Some of them do, like, that basically they could be as creative as others. Of course, it's more difficult for them to be artists, but they can do basically everything else. And now, if they, like some of them actually learn how to be coders because there's like not coders, but like no code programming things. They learn to use it. They can just code blocks. Some of them have fascinating memory. And I know one guy who can like program in BASIC, like line 16, like if, then, and he holds a lot of stuff in his mind. Like they just can do a lot of things and being part of the game industry as a lot of other people. A lot of voice actors as well. They could be also blind or visually impaired, and like there's no limit as usually. We can do anything, and sometimes like if people without hands can be champions of archery, what can we say? Yeah, just get inspired and prove everyone that it's possible. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the very interesting presentation. I was wondering how many big game companies have dedicated teams dedicated to accessibility, like teams that are in charge of making the games accessible.
I don't know the exact number, but probably all Americans practically, like a lot of Americans. I don't know how it's now, because now there's a trend of making more like inclusivity and some other stuff, which is not about disabled, it's more about like gender politics and so on, and more about HR. But a lot of big companies, they have opportunities. Well, you've seen that Far Cry is there, so sometimes they have, some games have more features than the other, but you know that like almost all of them at least have contrast and screen scaling and like everything like that. It's already for visually impaired. You've seen Mortal Kombat 11 is also blind friendly, and Mortal Kombat, when they do this 3D stuff, is terrible, but when it's still this old school 2D fight, it's still very like it's still playable by blind people, because like fighting games are quite friendly. And that's another thing which a lot of creators of fighting games, they don't realize, that these games have this additional audience and they need to be really careful about implementing sound cues and everything, so blind people could play as well. Because not all of them have. If you will go there, like some games, they just, you just ask, what the hell is going on? Like you don't hear, like sound is absolutely different, though it looks cool. So it's something we should really remember about. And I hope that even more people will think about it. And just, if you will hear that someone is making a game, just ask them, oh, do you have their opportunity to think about like blind players? And they're like, oh, sure, oh yeah. Like, I don't know about racing games though. But like there are some genres more blind friendly than the others. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yeah. Any more questions?
Do we have more questions? I don't see anyone waving at me, so okay. I would say we can wrap this up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And yeah.